This week, the issue of the week is making sense of our legal system. I go crazy when I go to the polls and I have to deal with those judge names that are on those ballots. I know you do too. So with us today is Larry DeMarco, on the ballot as G. Lawrence DeMarco, and he's going to help us understand our own legal system. Larry DeMarco, welcome to the Haverford 7 show, and I wanted you to really be on this show because I go crazy when I go to the polls, and I'm trying to make sense of the judicial part. And I was working the polls last Tuesday for the primary, and I talked to several people coming to the polls, and they literally said to me, "Oh yeah, I don't vote for the judges." And I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, I don't know who I'm voting for, and I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake." You know, so that's part of why I really wanted to sit down and have this conversation to make sure we can help people understand that this is actually important, but also understand that there's a lot of frustration when people are trying to figure out the whole judicial thing. So part of it is that I don't think people even necessarily fully understand the different layers of the court. So let's just start there. What are the layers of the court, and why, as an average Havertonian, should I care about those judicial votes?
Different layers. There's trial courts, and there's appellate courts. And I'll really focus on this election because this is what you guys have to choose from.
Right.
So the trial courts, you have your district court judge, and you have your court of common pleas, and I'm a candidate for the court of common pleas.
Right, so you're running for court of common pleas, and so people will see your name on the ballot as G. Lawrence DeMarco in November.
Right. The court of common pleas, they are going to sit in the county courthouse, and your local district court judge is local. Your local judge is going to hear things like traffic court tickets, small summary offenses, and
landlord-tenant stuff. And that's the only time I've actually intersected with that level of the court. Is I actually had to do an eviction once for a tenant, and it was that level of the court. So that's the magisterial court level, right?
That or very small, minor, think monetary disputes under $12,000.
Right, what people used to call small claims court. I don't know if they still call it that or
they
whatever.
do.
Okay, so yeah, so below, and what's the monetary amount to me?
Under $12,000.
So if it's under $12,000, I'm going to be sitting in front of a magisterial judge.
That's right, in district court.
Okay.
Court of common pleas, you have anything. There's no limit for a court of common pleas, and you also have your divorces. If you have to probate estate, if someone dies.
Okay.
If you have a property dispute, because it deals with property, there could be any amount of value of your property, or if you have a serious criminal offense.
Okay.
All that, if you think of something big, you're going to be in the court of common pleas.
So court of common pleas is really, I think, what most people have in mind when they think the court, right? I mean, it's probably what they have in mind from like Law and Order or something like that. It's the main level of the court system where pretty serious things are. Minor stuff is sort of at the magisterial level, but court of common pleas is where things look like a sort of classic courtroom scene.
That's right, and that's why every neighborhood is going to have a district court, but every county dispute that's of a felony or a large matter is going to go to the county.
And so this is the media courthouse, is the court of common pleas, right? That's the level that you're a candidate for office for.
That's correct. Okay. Now, also on the ballot, we have some state judges that are running for election.
Okay.
Commonwealth Court,
okay,
Superior Court, and Supreme Court.
Right.
If you have an appeal from the Court of Common Pleas, you'll take them to a state court, and there's other courts that I just mentioned, those judges that I just mentioned, and we have several of those judges who are also running, and they're up for election also.
So those levels of the court, those are not first stop. Those are like, after I've already had some kind of interaction with the legal system, and I'm not in agreement with what the judgment was, and I'm doing an appeal, right? So now I'm moving up to a higher level court, right?
That's right, except for some very few narrow circumstances, but we don't need to get into that right now.
Okay.
Now
they're unusual.
That's correct, and those judges sit in three places: Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia.
Okay. And again, what are those levels then? So I'm at Court of Common Pleas, then I've got Superior, is that the next layer?
I'll give you a little bit of information about that. Superior Court is going to be, they're going to be car accidents or civil matters or some criminal appeals go to Superior Court.
Okay.
Commonwealth Court, think agencies, Commonwealth, some state agency matters or claims against the government.
Okay.
Those appeals will go to Commonwealth Court.
Okay, gotcha. And then Supreme, again, I think a lot of people when they hear Supreme are thinking the federal Supreme Court, but this is a state level Supreme Court. And so what goes there?
That's right. That is the highest level in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they do not have to hear an appeal. Those are only where there's some dispute amongst different jurisdictions.
Okay.
They can, let's just think they want to resolve a conflict or clarify the law. Then the Supreme Court can agree to hear a certain appeal where there's an important issue of law that needs to be clarified.
Okay, got it. All right, so I find that very helpful. I mean, I can now sort of picture in my head what these different layers are. But now we get to sort of a stickier question, because again, I hear this at the polls, I hear this when I'm talking to people, which is sort of like a sense that it doesn't really matter that much. You know, I'm a law-abiding citizen. You know, I don't really know who these candidate names are. I haven't been able to research them. They're not getting a lot of press, and we'll get to that later. I mean, you guys have to stay neutral, essentially, or are supposed to. So it makes it hard for me as an average voter to know who I'm voting for, and that becomes, and people tend to not do something when they feel ignorant about it. I don't know who this person is, so I'm just going to avoid the whole thing. But why should I care? Why is this actually important to me? Why is it important to know who the judges are at the Court of Common Pleas? Let's start there, since that's where you're focused on.
At the county level, a judge is one of your most powerful government officials, because if you just remember, just from American government class, think separation of powers. You have three branches of government in the American government.
Right.
At the county level, you actually only have two.
Okay.
You have your county council.
Okay.
And there's only 5 members of county council. And then you have judges.
Okay.
So you have no executive branch. And our whole government was designed for a checks and balance system. But in our county government, that checks and balance system is narrowed down to 2 branches of government.
You know, again, I'm a pretty educated voter, Larry, but the funny thing is, until you say that, I have never actually sat down to think about that. Because, you know, at the state level, we have a governor, so we have an executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have all these higher level courts that you were just telling us about. But yeah, at the county level, I've got you, if you're the judge on Court of Common Pleas, and I've got county council, which I think most people don't know almost anything about county council. I mean,
which is maybe another time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, because again, I don't think most people understand the structure of county government, and so they hear this thing, county council, but you know, what is that?
Perhaps you can get into that for another time, because there's a lot of ignorance going on there too.
Okay.
But for your county government, you have 5 government officials sit on county council, and you have approximately 20 judges. And that's it.
Wow.
They make all your government decisions, and they have to check each other. And that is the only government official that you have for county. And if you recall, we have members. 200 years ago, 300 years ago, you have our founding fathers that died to set up this Constitution, to protect from government,
checks and balances,
to set up this checks and balance. And think of how much power those judges have when you only have 2 branches of county government.
I mean, it's
a lot of power.
So yes, I mean, so the answer is you really do need to understand that this really does affect you, because these names on that ballot for county council and for these judgeships are, is that the right word? Judgeships?
Judgeships, sure.
I'm going to call it judgeships. You know, if that's not the right word, I just made it up. But yeah, these names are a small number of people who hold an enormous amount of power over the local level law system, and if I get in trouble, if I get in a car accident, or if I, you know, whatever, I mean, I get on the wrong side of someone accusing me of something, there's a very small number of people who are going to have created the laws that apply to me, and then are going to interpret, you know, whether I'm innocent or guilty of something, and entire livelihood depends on these couple of people.
And I'll add something to that. If a judge issues an opinion or a decision on something, and you want to appeal that, you don't like that decision, the standard of review on to reverse a judge is actually strict.
Okay.
You have to prove that that judge committed an error of law or abused his discretion.
Okay.
So it's not easy to
Right.
change a judge's decision. Once that judge issues his decision, it's near final. I mean,
Okay.
it's pretty much once that judge issues his decision.
They have to have made a pretty big mistake,
That's right.
or they have to be really kind of twisting something. And if it's not obvious like that, I mean, I'm kind of stuck with that decision.
In
right?
very rare circumstances, can you reverse a judge? So, why should you care in going and voting for a judge? Because once you get a judge in place, if you do have one of those disputes with an insurance company, a neighbor, a policeman, suppose a policeman goes too far in making an arrest and violating your constitutional rights.
Right.
The only person who could protect your freedom might be one of these judges.
Okay.
So that is one of the most important government officials at the county level for voting, and I strongly recommend that each decision in picking a judge be researched, and because in the modern time there has never been more information available.
Right.
So a voter doesn't have much excuse to say, I don't know anything about these judges, because look at all the information we have. We have the League of Women Voters. We have the online newspapers. We have websites. We have state websites. There's we can Google a name of a person
and learn
get,
quite a bit about them.
That's right.
One more thing, and then we'll wrap up this segment. I hope you'll be willing to do more segments with us. This has been very, very helpful, and I think understanding this judicial layer is really important, because it's something that I think people already, we have problems with low turnout for elections in general, but I think when it comes to this judicial system, we get lower than low turnout because there's people turning out who are actually not voting for that level of what's on the ballot because they are just, again, afraid of making a mistake. So this has been very helpful. So hope you'll be willing to do a couple of more segments with us as we kind of do a theme on the judicial system heading up to the November election, try to help people out. But one of the pieces of confusion also is this whole notion of people are going in and they may have a strong party affiliation as a voter, or they may be a diehard Republican, diehard Democrat, or diehard Independent, and they walk into there and people are cross-filed. And I think that's, again, a confusing thing for people, but there's a good reason for why that happens, right? So give us a little bit of why judges cross-file and what that's supposed to do, and we'll, in future segments we'll look at what's been actually happening.
Sure. At the primary level, you will have seen cross-filing, and I will give you a little bit about why you've seen that.
Okay.
However, at least going into the general, you will not see that.
Okay.
You saw that for judges, and you saw that for school board candidates.
Okay.
And the reason why is they're not supposed to be political positions.
Right. You want your judges to be unbiased, and they're part of that checks and balances, so you want them to not really have a strong party leaning.
Absolutely, and it's written in the canon of judicial ethics that they are not supposed to be part of a judicial party in running. They're not supposed to hold any type of party affiliation as they go through the election process.
Right.
Therefore, they are allowed to, with the term cross-file, is to appear on both Democratic and Republican
primary elections.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So that's why when you said cross-file, that's why people, when they went in, may have been confused when they saw both.
Right, they say similar, same names on both sides, whether they were in there as a Republican or a Democrat. And I said independent, but obviously independents can't vote in the primary in Pennsylvania. So going into November, though, that's not the case. They'll. What will the ballot look like in November then?
Well, the whole purpose behind that primary election was for us to choose which ones would remain. We're going to knock off some candidates from both
so we're
sides.
narrowing the pool down.
Absolutely. That was the primary, both in the judicial and the school board.
Okay. So when we get to November, though, we're then voting for the actual
Winners of the
the
election.
winners of the slots that are open in the different layers of the judicial system.
That's correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
Excellent.
correct. And just to resolve a little bit of confusion, the Democrats did not cross-file, not because of any neglect, but because Republicans would not sign judicial ballots in this election because through fear.
Well, and
Through
we're going to
fear of losing their jobs.
and I've done a segment on fear.
You have, and that could lead to another one another time.
We're going to do a whole piece about, because I think this is critically important, but I wanted to get this part to get people to understand, and then we'll do a segment on the fear and how that is playing out in actual elections, because it's actually a little disturbing to me, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So
Sure. Just wanted to take that opportunity to
Yeah.
clarify a comment that was made by the chair of the Republican Party. He said that there was
Right.
a failure behind the Democratic candidates
to
in not
cross-file.
cross-filing.
And that was
there
not the
was
case.
no failure.
Well,
So
and we're
I
going to
just
talk
wanted-
more about that. So, Larry, I really appreciate you being on the Haverford 7 show. I mean, this has been very helpful to me, and I hope it's been very helpful to you. Because I think you're in the same boat that I am every time we go to the polls, and especially in the primaries, and we're trying to figure this stuff out. So, G. Lawrence DeMarco on the ballot in November. Larry DeMarco to those who know him. Thanks for being on the Haverford 7
Mark,
show.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.